Welcome to Natural History Nights. Today's episode tells the tale of Sebastian the Axolotl. Lay back, close your eyes, and let Sebastian's story help you drift into a peaceful sleep. Please like and subscribe. Beneath the still, glassy surface of a high-altitude lake in the Valley of Mexico, a network of narrow canals, shaded by low-growing reeds and water plants, cradles the habitat of one of the world's most unusual amphibians. This is Lake Xochimilco, the last remaining fragment of a once vast freshwater system. The water is cool, clear and shallow, only a few feet deep in many places, and the lake bed is soft with silt and decomposed organic matter. Here, in the filtered light that reaches through the water, Sebastian glides slowly forward. He is an axolotl, a fully aquatic salamander, and he does not venture onto land. His limbs move gently, but his primary motion comes from the wave-like undulations of his long tail. Along his back runs a soft, low dorsal ridge. It ripples slightly with each movement. His forelegs are splayed outward, tipped with slender toes that occasionally brush against plants or stones. Sebastian's coloration is dark, almost black in this wild population, flecked faintly with a greenish-brown tint that allows him to blend with the muddy substrate. Along either side of his head, 3 frond-like external gills project outward. These gills are feathery and finely branched, bright with oxygenated blood. They flutter faintly even when he is still, as water passes over them. Sebastian is neotenic, meaning he retains juvenile traits into adulthood. Unlike most amphibians, he does not undergo full metamorphosis. He keeps his gills, his fin tail, and his aquatic life throughout his adult years. This unique biological condition is a result of both genetics and environment. In the cool, oxygen-rich waters of his native lakes, there is no evolutionary pressure to transform. He can breed and live a complete life without ever leaving the water. Each day begins with a slow emergence from shelter. Sebastian has chosen a hollowed space beneath a fallen stone slab, partly buried in soft silt. He spends the night here, motionless, his body pressed low to the ground. In the morning hours, light increases through the surface, though the change is gradual. Axolotls are most active during twilight and night, but in the wild, they also move gently through their range during overcast days. He begins his morning routine by swimming a short distance, no more than a few body lengths, pausing frequently to taste the water with his mouth slightly open. Axolotls have underdeveloped eyes and rely on other senses to detect food and movement. Their lateral line, a sensory organ found in many aquatic animals, allows them to sense vibration and pressure changes in the water around them. Sebastian's feeding method is suction-based. When he detects prey, often a small aquatic worm, insect larva, or crustacean, he opens his mouth rapidly. This sudden movement creates a vacuum, drawing water and prey into his mouth in a swift gulp. He does not chew, and his teeth are vestigial, more suited for gripping than cutting. Much of what he consumes is swallowed whole. Today, he finds several water fleas, a midge larva, and the tail end of a dead earthworm that drifted into his territory. He also investigates a few pebbles, testing them with the same sudden gulp, then spitting them out as inedible. This behavior is common and helps him identify potential food items by shape, movement, and resistance. He eats slowly, with long pauses between feeding events. Axolotls have a slow metabolism, especially in the cooler months, and can go several days without feeding if necessary. Still, Sebastian is in his prime and maintains a healthy body weight. His midsection is broad but not bloated, and his limbs are strong, each ending in delicate digits. For most of the day, he alternates between slow swimming and resting. He explores a small patch of aquatic plants that grow in tufts from the silt. Here, he moves through strands of elodea and water moss. Occasionally, he uses his front limbs to push gently against plant stems, either to dislodge small invertebrates or to position himself more comfortably. During one short exploration near a submerged log, Sebastian encounters another male. The two axolotls circle each other briefly. There is no immediate conflict, but each watches the other carefully, maintaining a wide distance. Axolotls are solitary, and while not territorial in the aggressive sense, they do prefer space, especially from others of the same sex. After a moment, they drift apart and continue their individual routines. Later, Sebastian returns to his shelter. He does not build a nest, nor does he modify his environment with tools or digging. However, he selects his resting places with care. The underside of the slab provides shade and stillness. Sediment settles easily here, and the currents are gentle, reducing energy expenditure when resting. He spends several hours in this position. From time to time he shifts slightly to adjust his angle or fan his gills more efficiently. These gills are delicate, and their surface area allows for maximum gas exchange. When oxygen is low in the water, Sebastian will occasionally rise slowly to the surface and gulp air. He can absorb oxygen through a rudimentary lung and through his skin, but these are only secondary methods. Most respiration occurs through his gills. As dusk approaches, activity increases. The water cools further, and Sebastian becomes more animated. He travels a longer distance, exploring a ridge of sediment that has formed along a narrow channel. Here, the water runs slightly faster, and fine particles remain suspended. In this area, insect larvae are more abundant, and he consumes several small prey within a short time. Near nightfall, he encounters a freshwater snail. This animal is too large to eat, but Sebastian investigates it closely, nudging it with his snout and turning around it slowly. This investigative behavior is not uncommon. Axolotls learn their environment primarily through physical interaction. With limited eyesight and no complex social behaviors, tactile feedback and spatial memory are crucial. Before long, he returns to his original shelter, drawing himself low to the ground once again. The gills move slowly, and his tail lies still. He does not sleep in the same way mammals do, but he enters a state of low responsiveness, conserving energy. Sebastian will repeat this cycle again the next day. He will remain submerged. He will not migrate. He will not climb onto land. His world is one of still water, dim light, and constant, quiet movement. For now, he is still, suspended in the shallow dark, beneath the stone, in the silty calm of the lake. The spawning season begins in early spring, when water temperatures rise slightly and daylight hours increase. Although the changes are subtle, they are enough to trigger shifts in behavior. In the shallows of Lake Xochimilco, movement increases among adult axolotls. Males and females begin to encounter one another more often. Sebastian has reached maturity. He is around 18 months old, and his body length is just over 20 centimeters. At this stage, he is fully capable of reproduction, even though he retains the physical traits of a juvenile amphibian. His gills are large and healthy, and his limbs are well formed. Internally, his testes are active, and his body produces the necessary hormones to initiate courtship. Axolotls do not reproduce through physical coupling. Instead, their mating is external and depends on precise, coordinated behavior. When Sebastian encounters a receptive female, he becomes alert. He begins to circle her slowly, moving in gentle arcs around her body. He waves his tail in a sweeping motion and lifts his head slightly to guide her attention. The courtship continues for several minutes. Sebastian may nudge the female gently with his snout, or swim a short distance ahead of her, then pause. If she is receptive, she will follow. At a chosen spot, usually over a patch of clean substrate, Sebastian deposits a spermatophore. This is a small, cone-shaped structure that contains sperm, held upright on a gelatinous base. Once deposited, he continues to guide the female, nudging her until she moves directly over the spermatophore. Her cloaca makes contact with the structure, drawing it into her body. Fertilization is internal, and once complete, the pair separate. There is no long-term bond between male and female. Sebastian returns to his solitary routine. The rest of the reproductive cycle unfolds without his involvement. Inside the female's body, fertilized eggs begin to develop. After a few hours, she selects a nesting area, usually among submerged plants or fine roots. Over the next day or two, she lays between 100 and 500 eggs, each individually attached to vegetation or debris with a small sticky thread. The eggs are soft and spherical, encased in a protective jelly that shields them from minor disturbances. Each embryo begins as a pale cluster of cells. Within 2 or 3 days, segmentation becomes visible. A dark streak forms, the neural tube, followed by the development of the head and tail. Tiny gill buds emerge, and muscle contractions begin. The entire process takes 10 to 14 days, depending on temperature and water quality. When the eggs hatch, the larvae are around 1 centimeter long. They are translucent and fragile, with disproportionately large heads and a narrow tail. Their eyes are undeveloped, and their gills are short but functional. For the first few days they do not feed. Instead, they rely on the yolk sac attached to their underside, which provides essential nutrients. After the yolk is absorbed, the young axolotls begin to feed independently. They consume microscopic prey, such as rotifers, water fleas, and infusoria, which they locate by sensing movement. Their mouths are small, but already capable of the same rapid suction feeding used by adults. At this stage, they are highly vulnerable to predators and environmental fluctuations. Survival rates are low, and only a small fraction of hatchlings reach adulthood. Growth is rapid during the first few weeks. The tail elongates, and the gills branch into finer filaments. limbs begin to develop, with the forelimbs emerging first. Each limb starts as a small bud near the torso, then extends outward and divides into digits. Hind limbs appear a little later, completing the animal's basic form. By the time they are 2 months old, they resemble miniature adults. Sebastian was once among a clutch of over 300 eggs. Fewer than a dozen of his siblings survived the early stages. By the time he reached 5 months, he had grown large enough to avoid most predators. His body darkened as pigment cells developed, and his senses became more refined. At this stage, he could detect low-frequency vibrations in the water and respond quickly to nearby motion. The young axolotls do not receive parental care. Their development is independent, and their behavior is instinctive. From the moment they begin feeding, they must compete for resources. In crowded conditions, aggression can occur. Larger individuals may nip at the gills or limbs of smaller ones. In extreme cases, cannibalism is observed. This behavior is not malicious, but driven by the need for protein and limited space. Sebastian avoided most conflict by staying near the edges of his nursery area. He fed quietly among submerged roots, where detritus and small prey accumulated. His gills were occasionally damaged in scuffles, but they regrew without lasting harm. Like many amphibians, axolotls possess strong regenerative abilities. They can replace not only skin and muscle, but entire limbs and parts of internal organs. By 6 months of age, Sebastian's limbs were fully formed. He moved with more precision and strength. He could explore wider areas, diving through vegetation and crossing open silt beds with confidence. His body became more streamlined, and his gills enlarged to keep pace with his growing oxygen demands. Around this time, his neoteny became permanent. In some salamander species, young individuals undergo metamorphosis as they mature, losing their gills and adapting to life on land. But in Sebastian's case, the process was halted by both hormonal and environmental conditions. He would remain aquatic for life. His lungs developed only partially, and his skin retained its permeable, water-dependent structure. By 10 months, Sebastian began to settle into the adult routines that now define his life. He selected a personal shelter beneath a buried rock and started to establish a loose territory. His feeding became more regular and his movements more measured. He still interacted occasionally with other axolotls, but these meetings were brief and non-social. Now a mature male, Sebastian's life revolves around feeding, resting, and occasional courtship. The cycle of reproduction continues around him each year, but his role ends once the spermatophore is delivered. He will never guard offspring or revisit his mates. His young, as he once was, must survive on their own. The lake remains unchanged through most of the seasons. The water level rises and falls slightly, and the temperature shifts between cool and cold. Each year, Sebastian grows a little more. Axolotls can live for over 10 years in the wild, although many do not reach that age. Still, he shows no signs of slowing. His gills remain bright, and his movements are strong. There is no ceremony to mark the passage from larva to adult, no rites, no instruction, no change in role or responsibility. The transition is gradual and physiological. Each month brings refinement, larger limbs, darker skin, more deliberate actions. Sebastian's entire growth, from egg to adult, has taken place within a few square meters of the lake bed. For axolotls, this is enough. They do not migrate or expand territories. They do not require complex social interaction. Their development is efficient, and their design is specialized. In remaining juvenile in form, they remain perfectly adapted to the life that surrounds them. Sebastian rests again beneath his stone, the same shelter he discovered many months ago. He is fully grown. The waters that raised him continue to flow gently through the reeds, and in their soft current, another generation begins to hatch. Sebastian lives in the remnants of a once expansive, high-altitude freshwater ecosystem. The Valley of Mexico, where Lake Xochimilco lies, was historically a region of interconnected lakes, canals, and marshes. Today, only fragments of that system remain. The lake where Sebastian swims is not a lake in the traditional sense, but a shallow, slow-moving patchwork of man-made canals, spring-fed pools, and agricultural plots surrounded by chinampas, or floating gardens. The water is cool and clear in some areas, but murky and stagnant in others. Depth rarely exceeds a meter, and the bottom is soft with sediment and decaying plant matter. The lake is fed by underground springs and occasional rainfall. Vegetation includes elodea, water hyacinth, and reeds which offer shelter and oxygenation. Floating plants reduce sunlight, while submerged roots provide crevices for shelter and egg-laying. Sebastian spends his time within a small territory in this environment. His range includes a submerged stone slab, patches of aquatic moss, and a shallow channel lined with silt. This habitat supports not only axolotls, but also a range of other freshwater organisms. Small crustaceans move through the weeds. Insect larvae drift in the current, including those of mosquitoes, dragonflies, and midges. Tiny snails, leeches, and freshwater worms share the same water. Some are prey for Sebastian. Others live unnoticed. Axolotls are important predators within this micro-ecosystem. Their feeding habits help regulate populations of aquatic invertebrates. They are generalist carnivores, consuming whatever soft-bodied organisms they can catch and swallow whole. In this way, they help maintain balance among species. By consuming insect larvae, they may reduce the spread of pests. By feeding on detritus feeders, they influence nutrient cycling at the base of the system. In turn, axolotls are vulnerable to predation from fish, birds, and occasionally other axolotls. However, in their native habitat, fish species have been artificially introduced. Tilapia and carp, both non-native, now compete for food and consume axolotl eggs and young. These species disturb the sediment and uproot vegetation, further degrading the delicate underwater landscape. The physical condition of the habitat also affects Sebastian's health. Clean, cool, oxygen-rich water is essential for the function of his external gills. In low oxygen conditions, he may surface to gulp air, but this is less efficient. Turbidity limits visibility and reduces the growth of beneficial aquatic plants. As canals fill with debris or algae, feeding becomes more difficult and shelter becomes scarce. Human activity has altered the environment significantly. Urban development around Mexico City has reduced the natural flow of water and increased pollution. Pesticides, detergents, and waste products enter the lake system through surface runoff. In some areas, sewage contamination affects water chemistry. These pollutants can cause gill damage, lower reproductive success, and disrupt hormonal development in amphibians like Sebastian. Chinampas, the traditional agricultural method in the region, are one of the few practices that support biodiversity. These raised planting beds are surrounded by canals and help stabilize water flow, reduce erosion, and promote aquatic vegetation. In places where chinampas are still used with minimal chemical input, water quality remains relatively stable. Conservation projects have focused on these areas as key refuges for remaining wild axolotls. Several scientific efforts are underway to preserve both the axolotl and its habitat. Conservationists conduct water quality monitoring, vegetation replanting, and invasive species removal. Captive breeding programs have produced large numbers of axolotls in laboratory conditions, both for research and future reintroduction. Genetic diversity is carefully managed to avoid inbreeding. However, lab-raised axolotls often differ from wild populations in color, size, and behavior, which presents challenges when releasing them into natural environments. In some protected areas, conservation channels have been created. These artificial waterways are fenced off from larger canals, preventing entry of invasive fish and controlling pollution. Sebastian's part of the lake lies just beyond one such channel. While not entirely isolated, his environment benefits from its proximity. Water in this region remains moderately clean, and aquatic vegetation is recovering. Axolotls are considered critically endangered in the wild. Population surveys suggest that their numbers have declined by more than 99% in the last few decades. In some areas, only a few individuals per square kilometre can be found. Their limited range, combined with urban encroachment, makes long-term survival difficult without intervention. Despite these challenges, Sebastian's environment still supports life. In the mornings, egrets wade along the water's edge, and turtles sun themselves on the roots of half-submerged trees. During the wet season, frogs call from the banks, and dragonflies emerge in large numbers. Underwater, new axolotls continue to hatch. Their survival depends on clean water, sufficient prey, and shelter from both predators and disturbance. Sebastian remains in the same small territory where he has spent his adult life. He moves slowly through the plants, rests under his stone, and feeds as opportunity allows. His role in the ecosystem is simple, but not insignificant. In consuming prey, he shapes invertebrate communities. In reproducing, he contributes to genetic continuity. In simply existing, he represents an evolutionary path few amphibians have followed. In recent years, community-led conservation efforts have brought renewed attention to the species. Environmental education programs, habitat cleanups, and cultural events have all played a part in raising awareness. The axolotl, once common, now serves as a symbol of ecological fragility. People travel from around the world to learn about them, to see them, and in some cases to help protect them. Scientists continue to study their regenerative abilities, hoping to apply these findings to human medicine. Axolotls can regrow entire limbs, spinal tissue, and even parts of the brain. These traits make them a subject of intense research. Yet, for Sebastian, these abilities are not extraordinary. They are simply part of life, in a shallow, spring-fed canal, in the quiet water beneath a stone. As long as the water stays cool and clean, and as long as food remains available, Sebastian will continue to live out his life. He may never leave this small stretch of lake bed. He does not migrate, and he does not explore. His world is limited, but it is enough. Some evenings, the water becomes very still. In the fading light, his gills move softly. His body remains motionless, almost invisible against the dark sediment. Small bubbles rise from beneath the plants. A snail crosses the lake bed. Somewhere in the distance, a juvenile axolotl searches for food. And for now, Sebastian remains in the last quiet corners of his ancient home. Thank you for joining me tonight on Natural History Nights. For the rest of the hour, enjoy the calming sounds of nature. Wherever you are, I hope the quiet rhythms of the natural world bring you a little peace as you drift off to sleep. From both of us, Sebastian and me, rest well, sleep deeply, and until next time, good night.